Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, especially at 62. By now, life was supposed to be predictable. My days were meant to be filled with tending to my garden, quiet afternoons lost in books, and peaceful evenings beside my husband, Mark, as we reminisced about the years gone by. But one unexpected conversation changed everything, making me question everything I thought I knew. It all began at a corporate gala hosted by Mark's company. He had dedicated over 3 decades to the firm, climbing the ranks with unwavering commitment. His boss, Richard Caldwell, was a man of quiet authority, someone I'd only exchanged polite greetings with at previous events. He was in his mid-60s, tall and distinguished, carrying an air of effortless confidence. The gala took place at an upscale hotel in downtown Chicago, where grand chandeliers bathed the elegantly dressed guests in a warm glow. The room buzzed with lively conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the soft melody of a live jazz band playing in the corner. I had never been particularly fond of such gatherings. I much preferred the comfort of home. But Mark had insisted, so I slipped into a modest navy blue dress and agreed to accompany him. First, everything seemed ordinary. Mark was deep in conversation with his colleagues while I mingled with the other spouses, making polite small talk. Then, out of nowhere, Richard approached me. "Evelyn, may I have a moment?" His deep voice carried over the hum of the room. I hesitated for just a second. What could Mark's boss possibly want with me? But I smiled politely and nodded, following as he led me through a side corridor, away from the main ballroom. The further we walked, the quieter the sounds of the gala became. Finally, we stepped into a private lounge, a cozy space with dim lighting, a fireplace, and leather armchairs. The atmosphere felt different, the air thick with unspoken tension. My heartbeat quickened slightly as I sat across from him. "I hope I'm not pulling you away from anything important," he said, offering a small, almost nervous smile. "Not at all," I assured him, though curiosity bubbled inside me. "What's on your mind?" He sighed, rubbing his hands together as if trying to find the right words. Then, after a moment, he finally spoke. "It's about Mark." At those words, I straightened in my seat, my stomach tightening. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated. "Not exactly," he said, his voice calm but serious. "But there's something I think you should know." Even before he spoke another word, I could feel the weight of whatever he was about to say. His expression carried a quiet intensity that sent my pulse racing. "Evelyn," he continued, his voice both gentle and firm, "I've known Mark for a long time. I've watched him build his career, support his colleagues, and take care of his family. And through it all, I swallowed hard, noticing something in his expression. "What is it?" I asked. Richard leaned forward slightly, his gaze locked onto mine. "He doesn't appreciate you the way he should." His words hit me like a heavy weight on my chest. My breath caught, and an immediate wave of defensiveness rose within me. I don't understand," I stammered. "Mark is a good husband. He's always been." Richard nodded. "I know he is. But tell me, Evelyn, when was the last time he truly saw you? Not just as his wife, but as the incredible woman you are." I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came. Richard continued, his voice softer now. "I've seen the way you look at him when he's too busy to notice. I've watched you stand in the background at events like these while he loses himself in work. You give so much, but does he give back?" A lump formed in my throat. I wanted to protest, to tell him he was wrong, but something deep inside me wavered. "I don't mean to overstep," Richard said, leaning back slightly, "but sometimes an outsider sees what those inside cannot." I exhaled slowly, my mind racing. Richard studied my face, then offered a small, knowing smile. "Evelyn, you deserve to be seen." His words struck a chord I hadn't realized existed within me. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't sure what to feel. I sat there, frozen, his words echoing in my mind, stirring something I wasn't ready to confront. "You deserve to be seen." Had I really gone unnoticed for so long? I wanted to dismiss his words as mere observation, a well-intended but misguided attempt at kindness. But deep down, I knew he was right. Mark was a good man, a hard-working provider, always steady and reliable. But in the quiet moments, the ones that truly mattered, when had he last truly looked at me? When had he last noticed the little things I did to keep our life warm and full? The way I folded his shirts just the way he liked, how I kept our home filled with his favorite things, how I had stood by his side through every career triumph and setback. I cleared my throat, pushing down the lump that had settled there. Richard, He held up a hand, stopping me. I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but I couldn't stand by and say nothing. I let out a slow breath. I appreciate your honesty, I said finally, though my voice was softer than I intended. But Mark and I have been together for decades. Marriage is about more than just being seen. It's about commitment, stability. Richard nodded. I know, and I respect that. He leaned forward slightly, his gaze unwavering. But have you ever asked yourself what you truly want? His question lingered between us. What I wanted. I had spent so many years focused on what Mark needed, what our marriage required, what was expected of me. Had I ever truly stopped to think about my wants? I let out a small, nervous laugh. Richard, this is quite the conversation to be having at a corporate gala. That made him smile. I suppose it is. But something told me I needed to say it. A moment of silence stretched between us, broken only by the soft crackling of the fireplace. Then he sighed and stood up. I should let you get back. I stood too, smoothing my dress with slightly trembling hands. Yes, Mark will wonder where I am. Richard nodded, but there was something unreadable in his expression. Evelyn, just promise me one thing. I tilted my head. What's that? Don't dismiss what I said. Think about it. I hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right. He gave me a small smile before stepping aside, gesturing toward the door. As I walked past him, I felt the warmth of his presence beside me, the weight of our conversation still pressing on my chest. The gala was still in full swing when I returned. Mark was exactly where I had left him, deep in conversation with his colleagues. He didn't notice me at first. I stood at a distance for a moment, watching him, his face animated, his hands moving as he spoke. Mark's hands moved expressively as he spoke, his passion and drive on full display. It was something I had always admired about him. But as I watched, Richard's words echoed in my mind. Had Mark ever looked at me that way, with such focus, such intensity? When he finally glanced over and saw me standing there, he gave a small nod before turning back to his conversation. Something inside me shifted. Richard had planted a seed, and no matter how much I tried to ignore it, I knew it had already started to grow. The drive home was quiet. Mark sat beside me, gripping the wheel, his eyes fixed on the dark road ahead. The city lights flickered past in a blur, but my thoughts were elsewhere. Richard's voice lingered in my mind. You deserve to be seen. I stole a glance at Mark. He looked tired, the faintest crease of stress between his brows. We had been married for nearly 40 years, and I had memorized every detail of his face, the sharp lines of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way his lips pressed together in concentration. But when was the last time he had really looked at me? He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. Did you have a good time tonight? The question caught me off guard. It was something he asked after every event, every gathering, every dinner party. Almost as if out of habit rather than genuine curiosity, I hesitated before answering. It was interesting. He nodded absently. Good. And just like that, the conversation ended. I turned my gaze back to the window, watching the city fade as we moved toward the quiet suburbs. When we got home, Mark followed his usual routine. He took off his jacket, set his keys on the counter, and disappeared into his office to check his emails one last time. I stood in the kitchen for a long moment, staring at the empty space where he had just been. I wasn't angry at him. Not exactly. Mark had always been this way, dedicated to his work, steady in his routines. He had given me a good life, a secure life. But Richard's words had unearthed something inside me, something I couldn't push back down. I walked to the bedroom and caught my reflection in the mirror. 62 years old. My once auburn hair was streaked with silver now, faint lines traced my face, reminders of the years I had lived. But my eyes, they were still the same. And in them, I saw something I hadn't noticed in a long time. Loneliness. I had always assumed this was just part of aging, the quiet fading into the background, the slow slipping into routine. But now, for the first time, I wondered, was it? The next morning, as Mark left for work, he kissed my cheek and said, I'll be home late. There's a big client meeting. I nodded, offering a small smile. All right. Be safe. And then he was gone. I stood in the doorway for a long moment before stepping back inside. Normally, I would fill my day with errands, housework, or gardening. But today, I felt restless. Before I could talk myself out of it, I reached for my phone and dialed a number I never thought I would. Richard answered on the second ring. Evelyn. His voice carried the faintest note of surprise. I took a slow breath. Do you have time for a cup of coffee? There was a pause, then, softly, of course. An hour later, I found myself sitting across from him at a quiet cafe near the lake. The air smelled of roasted coffee and fresh pastries, and outside, autumn leaves danced in the breeze. Richard looked at me with quiet curiosity. I wasn't sure if I'd hear from you, he admitted. I stirred my coffee, watching the swirls of cream blend into the dark liquid. I wasn't sure if I'd call. He nodded, waiting. I exhaled slowly. I've been thinking about what you said. His expression remained unreadable, and I hesitated before meeting his gaze. You were right. Something flickered in his eyes, something I couldn't quite name. Evelyn, he said gently, I'm not saying I regret my life, but... I sat there, hands wrapped around my coffee cup, staring across the small cafe table at Richard. His words lingered in my mind, settling deep within me. I just want you to be happy. For years, I had told myself that being content was enough, that security, stability, and loyalty were the cornerstones of a good life. And they were. But Richard had made me realize something I hadn't even known I was missing, the need to feel truly seen. I took a deep breath, my thoughts swirling. Richard, I don't know what to do with all of this. His gaze softened. You don't have to do anything right now, Evelyn. Just think about it. What makes you happy? When was the last time you did something just for yourself? I parted my lips to answer, but found myself hesitating. When was the last time? I had spent decades making sure Mark was supported, ensuring his career thrived, keeping our home warm and welcoming. I had built a life around his needs, his ambitions, his world. But what about me? I took a sip of my coffee, letting its warmth ground me. I don't even know who I am outside of my marriage. The words felt strange, almost foreign, yet undeniably true. Richard gave me a small, understanding smile. Then maybe it's time to find out. I let out a nervous laugh. That sounds terrifying. Maybe, he said with a slight shrug. But also exciting, don't you think? I didn't answer right away. Outside, life continued as usual. Cars passed, people chatted, the autumn leaves danced in the crisp breeze. The world didn't pause for moments of reflection, but maybe, for the first time, I needed to. Finally, I met his gaze, a quiet certainty settling in my chest. I don't know what the future holds, Richard. But I do know I need to start living again. A smile played at the corner of his lips. That's all I wanted you to realize. That night, when Mark came home, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. Mark barely looked at me as he set his briefcase down and loosened his tie. Long day, he muttered. I'm exhausted. I watched him for a moment, this man I had built a life with, the man I had loved for decades. Yet, as he moved around the house, I felt a distance between us, a gap that had slowly widened over the years without me noticing. Taking a deep breath, I finally spoke. Mark, can we talk? He paused, finally glancing at me. About what? I swallowed hard. About us. His brow furrowed slightly. What about us? I hesitated for a moment before saying the words that had been building inside me since last night. I feel invisible, Mark. He blinked, confused. What? I feel like I've spent years being the wife who supports you, who keeps things running, who makes sure everything in our life stays steady. Andy, I do love you, but somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling seen. He frowned, clearly caught off guard. Evelyn, where is this coming from? I shook my head. It's been there for a long time. I just never let myself say it out loud. He sat down across from me, rubbing a hand over his face. I didn't know you felt this way. I studied him carefully. Did you ever wonder? He was silent, and in that moment, I realized something painful. Mark wasn't a bad husband. He wasn't intentionally neglectful or unkind. He had simply assumed, as I had, that marriage meant routine, that comfort was enough, that we didn't need to check in on each other the way we once did. But that wasn't truly living. And it wasn't love. Not anymore. "What are you saying?" he finally asked, his voice cautious. I inhaled deeply. "I need to start living for myself again." His face paled slightly. "Are you leaving me?" I hesitated, then shook my head. "I don't know what the future holds, Mark. But I do know that I can't keep living like this. And if we want this marriage to survive, something has to change." He looked at me for a long time, and for the first time in years, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Realization. Maybe we had a chance to fix this. Maybe we didn't. But for the first time in decades, I was ready to find out. Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to stay updated with our latest stories.